Welcome to Follow Your Process. I'm your host, David Andres. This podcast talks about business and life topics where we answer a lot of questions, we tell a whole lot of stories so that all of the viewers can achieve their desired outcomes. On today's episode, I wanted to expand on my business development experience. I know we've talked a lot about sanitation early on. We might dabble in that a little bit today. But I also want to share a story when I was a business development consultant with Delia Sod Farms in East Northport, New York. Delia Sod Farms was a third generation dirt farmer, basically growing grass. He was doing about 40 million. And I was introduced to him by David Galbraith, who was his general manager at the time. And I was hired to do website development, sales compensation, and just how can I grow this sod business from 40 million to say 50 or 60 million? And that was about a 3-year relationship. And in the midst of that relationship, I watched him plant the Yankee Stadium grass, which was an 18-month grow. So I watched from a dirt field, planting the seeds, watching it all grow for 18 months, being mowed. And then when he got ready to harvest it, to take 3 acres up to Yankee Stadium in 2008, 2009, I said, Rick, what are you going to do with the rest of this? This is like Yankee sod. He said, Dave, come on, who's going to buy that? He goes, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it to other customers. I said, well, we need to save some of that. So that turned into a new idea as I was doing business development consulting that eventually started Stadium Associates, and I became a Major League Baseball licensee for all the grass and sports. I got a 32-team license. A year later, I got the NFL license. So I'm sharing this to just broaden your ideas and your concepts, and I hope you keep watching. Because what we're going to do is continue to talk about life topics and business topics so that you can achieve your desired outcomes. As I've shared before, our podcast is sponsored by Banegas Art. You can go to banegasartmerch.com. David Banegas is a dear friend of mine and a wonderful artist. And he's known for taking photographs and converting it into Banegas art. And if you go check that out, he's done some very famous singers and actors, but he can also do it for you and your family. One of my favorite gifts is for friends of mine to send me a picture of their favorite family photo. And then I have it turned into Banegas art and I have it shipped to their house and they hang it on the wall. And it's a very, very memorable thing. So thank you, David, for your sponsorship. And I'm looking forward to my trip to Miami here in the next couple months as it turns a little bit cooler up north. Of course, Houston here, we're always hot. But thank you for your sponsorship, and I encourage all of you to check out www.banegasartmerch.com. Today's episode is one that came about in less than a week. When I told my producer, Skylar, and Stephen Tucker, my director, I said, I've only known this guy a week. And that happens to me quite a bit in my business life. I see things on LinkedIn. I see people like things. I go check them out. And I'm like, man, this guy Red, I got to meet this guy because he seems kind of cool. And he really is an amazing guy. So we exchanged communication on LinkedIn. I sent him a nice note saying I was connected to another gentleman that he was connected to. I'd love to chat with you. Here's my cell phone. And Red came back immediately. I think it was Friday or it was Thursday or Friday of last week and said, Dave, I'd love to talk to you. Some of the things you're working on, I'm curious about. And so on last Saturday, we had a call. It was a great first call. And I'm really pleased to introduce Derek De Vette, otherwise known as Red. And he owns the company In Red We Trust. And we're going to learn about that today. Welcome, Derek.
Hey, thanks so much. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. And you're in Southern California. Trying not to choke on all the smoke, I guess, right?
That's right.
Yeah. It's
like Hickory Farms out here right now, if that's what happens.
You need a little rain and you need the winds to shift, and then things will get back maybe a little bit normal. But I'm headed up to Washington next week, Seattle, and so we'll see what's going on up there. I mean, Oregon and Washington are really being devastated by the fires, and those of us in Houston who deal with hurricanes and everything else, we're thinking about you guys. But yeah, so Red is in the PR event space. And to do a little introduction, I'm going to have Skylar, my producer, cue up about a 1:38 video for you all to watch, which will really give you a sense of who Red is. And then we're going to get into a few topics. So that was quite a great little video. I watched that over the weekend, and when I saw that, I'm like, man, this is my kind of guy. And I have a long history in events. And Red, why don't you tell us a little bit about the three things in the article? And if you go to his website and Red We Trust and just look under media, there's a great article that video link is in. But just tell us a little bit about how you select events based upon the three different principles that somebody shared with you. Look out for these and then go for them.
Yeah. So just to clarify, so my company does, it's a boutique PR and event production agency. So I handle PR for various celebrity clients or high-tech clients. And then I also produce and direct events. And either I'm hired to produce or direct the event for somebody else, or I own the event. The one that you just saw in that video is actually an event that I own called the Fountain Outdoor Market. It's in East Hollywood. A couple thousand people come to that. It's 6 live acts on stage, about 60 vendors, gourmet food trucks, some local charities, and a lot of really, really fun things, just to sort of clarify that. But the article you're referencing came out in June, and they asked me, how do I decide whether or not to do an event or not, or give it up or partake in something? And so the advice that was handed to me was from a friend of mine named Lauren Selman. She's a TEDx speaker. She's the publicity and logistics manager for the Oscars, does the Olympics, like a player. Anyway, she told me you take an event or a gig. There's 3 reasons, not in any particular order. It's either the money, the connection, or the experience. And so long as you're hitting at least 2 out of 3 of those, take the gig. If you're hitting 2 out of 3, inevitably it will result in the third later on. And that's been a really good North Star kind of rule for me as far as what do I take on. And for me personally, especially the experience and the connections. I try never to work for free, but sometimes the experience and the connections are too good to be true. And I will take that gig. And it's interesting because inevitably it always does result in the third later. That's what it was.
It's really interesting how, we have to run our businesses. We have to make revenue and profits and everything else. But there are times when just being associated with an event or being involved in an event, even covering your costs or whatever, it can really turn into exponential things. I mean, my director, Stephen Tucker, obviously we had our tech rehearsal yesterday and whatever, and the two of you have even hit it off with some of his ideas about live streaming for events and videos and stuff like that. And none of us would have ever expected that, which is why I always say, you should drink more in bars, right? Like you should just go to a dive bar and have a beer. Just go in and sit down and have a beer and just talk to the guy next to you, because you never know what's going to happen. I'm not saying it to go get drunk and be at bars all the time at all, but you should go into a strange place and just have a beer, Miller Lite, whatever, and just talk to somebody, because what inevitably happens is the universe is vibrating and somebody just appears. Have you ever had one of those experiences?
Absolutely. I genuinely love people. Perhaps to the bane of my wife, meaning like whenever we're out, I'm always meeting the people and chatting with the person and the grocery person, ask them about their life. Like I genuinely like to discover people. Before I was producing events, I was a professional musician. So I toured, I played for thousands of people. And that to me was the greatest thing. And so when I ended that chapter, it was like events were kind of the next best emotional high compared to being on stage. Like the fact that I could bring a few thousand people together and I get to design the whole experience and the art and the food and the music, like it genuinely bringing humankind together genuinely makes me super happy, which is what's made this year just
very difficult.
A buzzkill for me personally, not even just financially, just personally, like to not have humankind come together. I cannot wait to open. But anyway, your producer, Stephen, was just clearly a like-minded individual. He comes from a rich background in entertainment and film and elsewhere, and also likes to bring people together. So we were commiserating is the wrong word, collaborating. I've been trying to come up with something that's not purely virtual. Nobody really wants to be virtual right now. I don't care what anybody says. Like nobody wants to spend 3 hours watching their favorite festival online. But I've been looking for ways to come up with more creative interactions. Like if I can have less people, but have the people that are online interact differently, multiple cameras, different feeds. That's what he and I were sort of.
Yeah, so we were talking about that. We had an event up in Canada where our owner from Amsterdam was not able to travel because of COVID, right. And he was going to set up a big monitor and have him there live watching it all, and then also being able to do interviews, interacting with people that had questions. Yeah. And I think you guys talked a little bit about yesterday about doing weddings where, grandpa and grandma in Italy can't travel to Atlanta to be at the wedding, but they could be sitting in a chair watching the wedding and doing something.
Yeah. I don't do weddings, but my producing partner does. She does big ones. And so what she and I were chatting about is the idea of, so the events industry, at least here in California, is level, but people are still getting married. No one's going to not get married. There's just less people and they're socially distanced, but it means a lot of people can't partake. So we started to kind of come up with these ideas of like, all right, well, if you can only have whatever it is, 30 people at a wedding here, and the whole family lives in Seattle, what if we got everybody together at a bar in Seattle and had a huge screen there, and they were socially distanced, and we had food and whatever, they had their masks, but they could watch the whole thing, but not just watch the whole thing, like watch the ceremony, but what if we had like made it almost like the Grammys or like the Oscars, where you've got people arriving and welcome, and the groom or the bride, you have any stories? Well, so great, thanks so much. And you turn it back over to somebody else and the camera changes and you feel like you're kind of there, participating, walking around. You could even show a little reel before the whole thing starts to everybody online of like the couple met, and then the ceremony. So in other words, it's not just this generic virtual. Everybody's a bit zoomed out, even though it's a great tool. But the idea of like, what haven't we thought of? How can we incorporate this interactive idea rather than this static virtual? So that's what we were discussing. And we're looking to do that in the weddings of my partner, but I'm looking to do it into my events. I want it to be great. It can't be okay. It can't be good. It has to be great. And so I keep going, all right, can we do better? Can we do better?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the types of events you do and what are the pain points as an event producer right now? That not so much, it could include the COVID stuff, but just pre-COVID, like, what are the things that an event producer struggles with, like event after event? Is there something that repeats itself, or talk a little bit about a guy that owns the event, is putting it together, and what you struggle with? So
the challenges of owning event are two things. So one, weather is the biggest up to now, would have been the biggest barrier, meaning is the weather good or not good? So for California, even though we have better weather than most for my outdoor things, you start heading into late October, it pretty much comes to a screeching halt if you're going to go outdoors, right? Because it just gets too darn cold. But the rest of the year is pretty wide open. So our May, June, July, August, and so forth is prime for someone like me. So weather is a factor. Funny enough, and you never know what's going to happen. Like that festival that you just showed the sizzle reel from, the minute sizzle reel. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that was actually the first one that we held. It was jam-packed in the morning. I mean, jam-packed. The vendors were so happy. And then unexpectedly at 1:30, it was like, Satan called. He wants his weather back. Like it just went well into the upper hundreds, and then people, and you can't predict that. It wasn't on the Google app. So so weather is one. The other one, if you own the event, is can I get people to the venue, especially if they don't know where the venue is. So like I'll give you like a real example, or even if you don't, even if you don't own the event. So I'll give one example of mine, example of somebody else's. So I was the promoter for the Harley Davidson Love Ride, and the Foo Fighters were the entertainment. And so this is thousands and thousands of people. And it was at a place called Lake Castaic here in California. And so the way that I negotiated that particular deal is I was paid on the ticket sales. And so I was watching it very closely. And even though the Foos are promoting this thing and they've got a hell of a loyal fan base, the tickets were just not going. I was starting to freak out. So I just thought, people don't know where Castaic Lake is. They just don't. So I reached out to the Foo management and I got in touch with their social media person. I said, listen, instead of putting Foo Fighters show at Lake Castaic, put Foo Fighters show LA 15 minutes north of Magic Mountain, which is where Castaic Lake is. And then the tickets went bing, 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 right? But the advantage of that venue for us was it was easy to get. It's not like there's a lot of gigs in Lake Castaic. So for me as an event producer, I'm looking for the next Coachella or the next Vegas. And by that, I mean, like, where is a venue or a location that nobody's really thought of that I can own, that nobody's gone there before. So that once I put my In Red We Trust flag there, it's mine. No one's going to take me out. And I was the first to get there. So the risk of that is that no one's heard of it. Like imagine Coachella 1 or the first thing in Vegas. But once people know about it, you own it. And so that's the advantage. The disadvantage is getting people to somewhere that they don't associate with entertainment. Hollywood, Greater LA is just saturated. So I've kind of chosen 30, 35 minutes out intentionally for the events that I own, with the exception of that street market. Yeah. Like right now in that article, I talk about one which is now canceled, but there's a school in the Valley, in the equestrian center of the Valley here, which is like over the hill from Hollywood. If you just went over the other side of the Hollywood sign. And it's this great campus called the Delphi Academy of Los Angeles. I got a huge soccer field. It's fenced in. So basically I have a 35, 50 foot movie screen. We're going to show Grease, outdoor movies, beautiful sound system, gourmet food trucks. I work with the biggest vintage hot rod club in California. So I was going to have them bring all of their cars for a big 1950s tailgate party, right? So this is a venue that no one's ever gone to. So unfortunately that got at least postponed because of all the nonsense right now. But like, that's in an area that nobody's heard of. So that's a genuine, even when it was on, it was a concern for me in that I'm going to have to get, people are going to go, they're going to go, where? The couple or the family, or they where? So I have to kind of really, really, really get creative in the promotion to give people an incentive to go there. So weather and location. And then probably the third one, which is a newer thing, is everybody's online and we're all just pummeled. We're saturated with spam and emails and ads. So yet that's where you reach people now. When I did Harley Davidson, that event, that was one of the few events that, this is my word, but it was almost promoting it. It was almost purely analog. Meaning I was going up and down the coast, meeting with Harley owners group chapters and biker bars and custom build shops and biker festivals. I'm sorry I missed that trip, because I would have been right there with you. It was really fun. I had teams handing out flyers and I was giving out bandanas and merch. It was very analog, old school promotion. I had radio ads going on, not K-Rock, although I did, KLOS, right? That is like so not the case now. If I produce an event, whether I own it or I'm doing, or if I'm promoting it for somebody else, it's like Facebook. It's the whole bevy of social media, and that technology is a moving target. It's a real. So I don't do that myself. I farm that out to kids that are fresh out of college, because believe me, the fact that we're even on Facebook, kids have long since left Facebook. Yeah, so I understand. Those are kind of my three issues, at least if I own the event. Talk about the distinction between owning the event, and is that something you want to do more of, or being the guy who's like a key player? I think you were involved in either the Emmys or the Grammys or the red carpet or something like that. Talk about a little about the distinction between the role you played and how you came out of corporate. You did a lot of corporate stuff, and then you evolved into being a guy that owns events or is hired as a contractor to do something at a big event. Yeah. So kind of like any industry, events, even the movie industry, there's a lot of word of mouth. It's not like there's necessarily a yellow pages of sanitation or yellow pages of events. If people have had good experiences working with somebody and then you're asking for a referral, you're only going to give me somebody who you genuinely trust, because you know that your rep is on the line. Yep. So what often is the case is somebody can't make an event or they're double booked, and they'll go, who do you know? And they'll go, hey, I know this guy Red within Red We Trust. You should use him. And so sometimes, even though I can do a whole bevy of things, they might need a specific function. So good example is the Latin Media Awards, which takes place at the same place as the Oscars. Something happened to their guy, and I get this call 2 days out from the event. And basically, they want me to run their entire red carpet, their talent, their VIP room, and backstage calling, which are very diverse hats, just so you know. Yep. And so, okay. So that is an example where I'm showing up to somebody else's event. And basically you're paid to be a combination executive, firefighter, and or babysitter.
And you're inheriting everything else everyone thought of. You're not able to generate it yourself. You just have to take on what's already coming.
Yes. But what's interesting about that is you have a lot of Indians and no chiefs. And you just kind of have to show up and take charge. So in that example, and there are many, many events like that where you get a call last minute to do something where it's like they need a hat worn and you're capable of doing all these hats. And you go, sure. Excuse me. So for that one, I was a little freaked out because normally I am like, honest to God, most of my career, I was a direct report to CEOs. So I like, they're really specific. So I like military preparation and I really mean military preparation for my event if I'm working for somebody else. So 2 days out, I was making as many calls to people that work on that event. And then I wasn't supposed to show up on site until 4. I showed up at about noon. I walked the entire site, and then I asked to find all the interns. And then I said, which interns worked on this last year? And then I brought all those interns aside. I said, I'm going to be your new boss in 4 hours. So I want you to tell me, what are your functions? What did you do last year? What made it hard for you? What made it really easy? And how can I help you this year? And then that was the most infinite source of great data that I could have gotten. And then when it was time for me to officially show up, I was just sort of man in charge. I had my suit on. You would have thought it was my event, and I ran the whole thing. And I've had that every year. And I'm not telling you that to pump me up. It's just how I operate behind the scenes. I'm not going to lie. I was freaking out only because of what I said. I'd never done that event. And also it was the Latin Media Awards. So you don't look at me and go, that guy is Hispanic. So
what's interesting about this is, and I think this is why we've gotten along as well as we have in a week. And I appreciate but you have the ability to have purpose and meaning, but also be open and vulnerable and be dumb and curious.
Yes.
So you're not really worried about asking, and it's all about what you don't know. It's all about the backstory. So when you showed up at noon, you should always show up early. Early bird gets the worm, man. Early bird gets the worm everywhere. I used to tell my sales reps, show up like you belong. Vest, hard hat, pair of boots, clipboard, and just walk in like you're supposed to be.
They call that fake it before you make it. It's a cheesy term. Yep. Honestly, I abide by it. If I were to reach over here, I even have 3, 4, I don't want to say fake event credentials, but they're credentials that I make and it just says executive staff, all access, VIP. It's got my picture. It says full authorization. These things look really official. And if I'm hired to do somebody else's event, I put it on a lanyard around me. And then I walk up, and then anything that I need, I just go like this, and I tell them what I need, and they go, "Yes, sir." I swear to God.
No. So you're beginning with the end in mind, which is one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. You're acting as if you're already in the position doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
You're actually not embellishing or being braggadocious, or it's not ego. It's actually playing to the role that you were hired to do with
Correct.
Boundaries and limits. And then you described, and by asking those interns from last year, the fact that you asked, who was an intern last year that's an intern this year, you were actually engaging them to give you the knowledge and input of what they thought went wrong, what went well, what got screwed up. And I'm sure they all just told you right away. And then a couple of the ideas you were able to assimilate, quick moving mind. You said, okay, I want you to change all the gates like the way you said that didn't work last year. Go ahead and get ready to do that. In 4 hours, the announcement's going to come out. I'll be your boss. But I'm telling you right now, as soon as that happens, then go do all that. Right? I mean, it's like,
Correct. And to your point, it really wasn't as self-important. In fact, I hate self-important people. I'm not saying I don't have an ego. I think everybody does. But by that, I mean, I'm very self-confident, but I believe everybody's important. And again, I said I was a direct report to CEOs for most of my career. So working my way up, I learned that real power is in the gatekeepers to all these CEOs, and the people who are seemingly unimportant. They're the ones that do all the work. If you treat them like crap, you're dead. You are so
treat them like the CEO. They have to actually be another CEO of their position. I taught this in many of the businesses, and it's really a business development. It's really a good relate. Everyone is your customer, and everyone is the CEO.
Yes,
and they should also think like a CEO.
Actually, if you read that article on me, and I was almost hesitant to talk about this, but I have a viewpoint that's a bit controversial, but I apply it to my events and I apply it to my clients' events, which is I don't really view the sponsor as my boss. I view the attendee as my boss. And all of my staff and all the interns that I train, I say the attendee is your boss. Let's take the Latin Media Awards that I just told you about, right? Yeah. So all these interns were freaking out, and I was just calming them down because they're aware of all the things that are going wrong. And I said, listen, you know they're going wrong, but the people that are here don't know that they're going wrong. They're all having a great time.
Right.
So that's your boss. So long as all the people here are happy and their smiles, right? You see something, you go help that person. Like, I said, it doesn't matter that I'm the executive today. If I see that, like, while the celebrities and their publicists are waiting for the press line, it's super hot out, I will run back into catering, grab a thing of water, set up a thing of ice pitchers and say, everybody, please have some drinks, hand them the plastic cups. They're the boss. Yeah. That's who you serve. And I know that sounds silly.
No, it doesn't.
In the case of Harley, I fought them to change the entertainment. I fought them to put things on the event site that were more family oriented, and it all paid off. And again, I get away with it because I always deliver, but it's only because I deliver. But I do that because that is who I'm serving. You do have to serve your sponsor. They're the one paying you. But my point is if you serve their attendees and you plan for their attendees, it comes up ahead. And that same Latin Media Awards, that is what I taught all those interns. And you talked about, by the way, taking charge. I was handed like 12 or 15 interns who were really, well, it's funny what we think is young now. Like what we say, it's funny how you get somebody who's 21 and we go, kids. I mean, they're really young adults, but they have no work experience. And I remember they were freaking out. And so I was just saying, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. And they said, well, you're so calm, aren't you worried? I said, well, look, you're an intern, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, okay. And I said, are you getting paid? And they said, no. I said, do any of these people know you? And they said, no. And I said, okay, so like, what's the worst that could happen? You're not going to get fired. Right. Maybe you won't come back next year. You won't work for this Latin association. You might upset a celebrity. I can fix that. We're not curing cancer, right? No. I said, okay, good. So just look, enjoy this experience. Go have fun. I'm on the walkie in my earpiece. Call me if you have any trouble. It'll go great. And I'm telling you, by the end of the evening, these kids were pros. I offered 2 of them work. Nice. And again, it's not to pump me up. It's just I was trying to do what it was going to take for me to deliver because I was getting paid to come in with only 2 days notice. And that's why I was freaking out.
Well, I can see why you named your company what you did in Red We Trust.
Yeah,
it's one of the better names of that I've seen, and it's really. I mean, I trust you implicitly. I would trust you with whatever you said you could do, and I think that's probably why your clients call you back or why you get referred or whatever. Yeah. What's interesting about it is I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and he talks about macro patience and micro speed. He talks about clouds and dirt. So all those interns had cloud ideas about being an intern at the Latin Music Awards. They told all their friends that they were going to be an intern. And then what they struggled with was the grinding, making the sausage in the dirt, right? And believing in themselves and believing in their hunches and getting recognition from the boss and whatever. And it sounds like you imparted upon a few of them that level of confidence, trust, calmness, context. When I did the U.S. Opens, the United States Golf's U.S. Open that's being played this week at Wingfoot, not so many fans, which obviously changes a bunch of dynamics. But I was the first vendor to provide the director of operations a single source for everything he was ordering. He used to get it from 3 different vendors. And I showed up for all the deliveries. I was there at 7 a.m. on a golf cart, Monday through Sunday. I was there to make sure he and his staff were happy, to do anything I'll do anything. It doesn't matter to me what it is. If it's shoveling shit, I'll shovel shit. If it's whatever it is, I'll go do it. So being a practitioner, as much as you're a theorist and a leader and a business owner, you sound very much to me like a total practitioner. So everything you say you're doing, you've already done. Like you've already tried it, which then gives you the confidence to try new things.
Sure. Well, okay, there's truth in that. I mean, if you lived enough and you've gotten over some crazy situations, you're a little bit more willingly bold to try something new.
Yeah.
At this age, I embrace those challenges. Maybe in my 20s, admittedly, I would have been a little bit scared if I was a really bold personality, which leads to the other side of your question. So that's kind of like what it's like being hired to do somebody else's event. It's rapidly finding out what they need, which sometimes you only find when you land on the site. Sometimes you find out before. When it's your event, it's almost more harrowing, depending on the timeline you have to put it together, because take that one that you saw me, you saw the video for. So I have to spend tens of thousands of dollars of my own money. That's the difference there. Now, it's easy if you have a sponsor. It's pretty hard to get a sponsor, at least in my experience, on event number one. Once you have proof of concept of your event, you can show it and it looks interesting. But if I go, hey, I want you to give me a 20 grand sponsorship for my street festival number one, they're like, what? Right? So that means I have to front a lot of the money. It means that I have to wear every single hat. And sometimes I don't know all those hats. But to your point, I'm kind of a sponge for adventure. And so I like to learn new hats. So with that street festival, I took on like the amount of the permitting was insane. Like I learned things that I didn't know because it was an aspect of events that I wasn't involved in. So like, for example, I had to get 51% of the entire neighborhood surrounding my street festival signatures in order to be able to do that. That was just step one. And then I had to liaise with the police and parking enforcement, and then the fire department, and then the fire inspector. And then there was a local church and religious institution where they like things really quiet. So I had to go liaise with them, and they want family things there, not crazy things, which is fine. It's not like I was putting on a death thrash metal festival, but I'm just saying, like, there was all these legal rudiment permits and hats, and they had to be followed by certain times, and architectural renderings, and the fire department wanted really unusual things. They call it serpentine. Like my fire barricades had to look like this little, it was crazy. And that doesn't just even include managing the 60 vendors. Each one had to pay a deposit, contract in writing, verify, coordinate, getting them in, getting them out. That doesn't include like there are so many details. When you own the event, the risk is so much higher. That being said, you pull it off, the profitability is so much greater. But what I really like about it, aside from that, is that when I do these events, they're fun. I take them for the experiences, but like it could be an event you do and you get paid tens of thousands of dollars once. So now you're kind of unemployed. And so what I don't like about being a hard event person is it's like being an actor. You're on a series, you're not on a series. So I started to do my own events, not just because I wanted to make more revenue, but I wanted to be able to have prediction of my schedule throughout the year to know that my nut was met, right? So I thought, all right, so in June, I could do 4 of these. And in the winter, I could do 1 of these. And on July 4th, I could do 1 of these. And I thought, that's plenty enough to keep me busy. And then I thought, but I still like doing all this stuff because I learn stuff and it's fun. And again, I love people. Like I love working the Latin Media Award. So then in between all of my own events, I do other people's events. So like Ann Archer, Golden Globe winning Oscar nominated actress. So I produce human rights salons for her with a very, very she promoting human rights. So like I get to do all these really neat things in between all of my own events. And that's fun for me.
So I was going to ask you, we have a few more minutes, but talk about what you're envisioning next. Like what, if you could wave a magic wand and in Red Your Trust could hire, I don't know how big your staff is, doesn't really matter, but like you could double or triple your size. What does that look like? What are you imagining in the future?
So the event that I just told you was called Moon Monkey Theater. It was about 5,000 people. It was a massive outdoor movie screening with 50-foot screen on July 4th with full laser fireworks show.
Oh my goodness.
Families, gourmet food trucks, a fair on the grounds, as well as activities, and a massive tailgating party with 1950s cars. So it's like you're seeing the movie, but it also is a fully immersive experience.
Yes.
Like it's not just going to an outdoor movie.
And you can bring the whole family. Dad's going to like the cars. Kids are going to love the other stuff.
Correct. And I was creating family packs, and I wanted it to be that something maybe people have experienced elements, but nothing like that. And in the part of town that I was doing it on July 4th, that's never been done. Now, what I was never banking on was like literally July 4th was canceled in California. I mean, right. My first thought as an event producer was like, well, no one's ever going to cancel July 4th. This is going to go forever. And then this year at my maiden voyage, July 4th is canceled. I'm sorry, what? But that was my next phase, not my only event, but the more immersive, the more art forms that the more I can have music, food, elements, the more entertainment value around an event for people and live. I like to get humans together. That really is what gives me my high. So it was bigger and bigger and bigger, but mine as opposed to others. And
I think you could rinse and repeat that in community after community after community. I mean, I think that
that's why I had that
same package and take it down to San Diego or take it up to San Jose. I mean, I don't know the geography so well, but you could take it 100 miles to the south, 100 miles to the north, and do it in the same community. Because I also think what's happening, and I'm in the event industry on some levels, the passion and the intensity when the doors open back up, you're going to see stuff happen because number one, the economics of the event producers has been decimated. So therefore it's infusion of lifeblood to have the event, right? They need to have it to bring their people back. Ryan Shore is a gentleman that you know a little bit better than I do, but he's in Southern California, Shore Events. He's prolific on Facebook and on LinkedIn. He's really a warrior and a mentor and a leader and a thought leader he had to lay off, said 150 people in one day. Yeah. And he's the guy that does all the tents and a bunch of event production for Coachella. And he's pivoted.
Yes.
But I think that what we're going to see is when we can get more testing, when we can like EDC Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, which is an Insomniac event. Pasquale Rotella runs Insomniac. He's got Rucker Jansen with him, Senior Vice President of Operations. They were told that they could have the event in October, I think it was, postponed from May, if they could test every ticket holder negative before they left their home and then negative before they entered the event. Now, that makes a lot of sense to me. A double negative means that you don't have it, right? But that logistically is just not possible today. Now, as I shared with you in some other conversations, I am indirectly seeking to find that solution. And it's referred to as the Crispr Test. Everyone should go out and Google the Crispr Test. MIT, University of California, San Francisco, Mammoth Biosciences, Sherlock Biosciences. I mean, I know more about Crispr Test these days than I ever thought I would know about anything. But I'm also agnostic to what I learn, right? Like I'm a curious guy that really enjoyed listening to you describe all the permits, right? I've known all the permits are there, but you just described in copious detail what those permits were. And I think that's a lot of what people miss when they say, I'm going to go do an event in downtown, wherever. They have no idea that that's what it is. When I became an MLB licensee, I always joked, no one sent me the playbook. Like if someone had told me everything that I was going to go through, I would have made a few adjustments. I would have done this a little differently or whatever. But I also dive into the arena much like you do, I think. And I think we're going to be friends for quite a while. I mean, I really appreciate you jumping on like this. And this has been a fantastic episode 5 here. It's only
Can I end with an MLB story since that's what you started off with?
Yeah, we don't have to end right away, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought we were ending. When I was 10, I lived in Florida in the Tampa Bay area, and in Clearwater, Florida was the Phillies summer or spring training camp.
Training, yes.
And so after middle school, every single day I used to go over there and watch all the scrimmage games and get autographs.
Yeah.
So one day Pete Rose was there, which again, you think back to the 70s, he was like
God.
He was God. There really isn't a better, right?
No, so he was God for sure.
And I'm waiting. I got my pen. I got my baseball. And he's got like a not a cast, but like a sling on in one arm. And so I and this little pack of other little rats of kids,
yes,
descend upon him. Mr. Rose, can we have your autograph? He's like, sorry, kids, I've got a cast on. No autographs today. All the kids run off. He gets into his Porsche, closes the door. I dive through the passenger side of his Porsche. Through the window, and I go, please, Mr. Rose, will you sign my ball? He goes, geez, kid. Okay. And so he signs my ball, and I have it on a shelf behind me.
Unbelievable.
I have a signed Pete Rose. So
that is such a great story of persistence. And it takes 5 no's to get to a yes. And just the enthusiasm and passion. I suffer from this all the time. I just believe it can happen, right? I just keep asking, to the point sometimes I'm annoyed. When I went with Rick D'Elia, who was selling 4 Home Depots their sod in Long Island, right? So he had 4 Home Depots, and he wanted to expand. So we created this thing called Stadium Associates, where we were allowed to sell Yankee sod with a trademark, with a hologram certificate that when you bought Yankee sod at Home Depot, it was literally a national licensed product that the game was played with, same sod, right? Unbelievable. And one of the hiccups there is I did these Yankee sod banners and I put them in Home Depot. And the thing I never expected was they would get stolen or never posted, because the Home Depot managers would take them home and put them in the garage. So I had to buy 3 or 4 fresh banners for 84 stores, which I didn't have in the budget, and I couldn't charge anyone for it. It was a marketing expense, right? But that actually was a major financial hit that I had to pay for. Anyway, so we go up to this meeting up in Braintree, Massachusetts. We drive from Long Island up to Massachusetts, and we go to meet with the live plant buyer, right? And he's talking about the 4 stores and how he'd like to expand to maybe 6 stores or 10 stores. And they're talking about it, and they're talking about the sod and and he's like, well, who's this guy? And it's like, oh, he's a new partner of ours. At the end, he'll bring something up. So like 10 minutes left in the meeting. It's on a Friday night. He's getting ready to go home and have dinner with the family, right? So I'm like, yeah, Dave Andres, I just partnered with these 2 guys. We have a new company called Stadium Associates, and we would like to know if you would like to be the first group of Home Depots to sell licensed sod in your Home Depots of Met sod and Yankee sod. He goes, what did you say? I said, yeah, I'm the national licensee. We're the national licensee. Rick's my partner. And so I just put it right out there. And he goes, Bob, Joe, get down here. Like he's yelling down the hall.
Of course, man.
Guys, he goes, say it one more time. I'm like, nice to meet you, Bob. Nice to meet you, Joe. I said, we have the opportunity, if you guys would like it, and it's okay if you don't, right? To be able to sell Yankee sod and Met sod in your Home Depots in New York. He goes, Susie, get him a Skew. Get him a Skew right now. He goes, here's your first Skew. He goes, done. He goes, done. We'll do it. He goes, Rick, how much is it? I said, don't worry about it. The price is, whatever. We'll do it. He goes, it's done. So then he says, listen, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go to Fred Brown down in Atlanta, who does the grass seed side of it for Yankees, grass seed in a bag, which shows the stadium, the grass. It's got the groundskeeper, Danny Cunningham, signature, all that sort of stuff, 3 blends of bluegrass, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, well, he goes, listen, Susie, get an email out to Fred. Tell him I just gave him a Skew for the live plants, for the sod, and ask him to get him a Skew for the grass seed, because we got to get this thing going. This is late November, of 2008, right? And my first meeting was November 5th, 2008, with the New York Yankees. Took me into Major League Baseball licensing, and in 45 minutes, I walked out with a 32-team license when we asked for 1 team, the Yankees. Anyway, so by spring, so I call this guy Fred. I send him all the literature. I said, I need the Skew to put on the bag. We're getting ready to print the bags. I got to print the bags, fill the bags. See, got to ship down here. We're getting ready to launch before opening day. So finally, Fred says, you got to come down and see me. So I'm like, okay. What I got to come see you for? So anyway, I flew to Atlanta. I went into the Home Depot front office. We went into a side conference room, and they're very drab. There's nothing fancy going on. And Fred's sitting there giving me the Skew, and he goes, Dave, let me ask you a question. He goes, do you have any idea how long it takes to get a Skew at Home Depot? I said, Fred, I have no idea. He goes, 12 to 18 months, and then another 6 months to activate it. He goes, this is your second one in 6 weeks. I said, Fred, what took you so long? I said, why did it take 6 weeks? Anyway, so in my passion, my vision, my enthusiasm as a business development guy, I see things before they exist, like totally. And I'm like checking. It's like Norm Abrams making the new Yankee Workshop. You got to measure 3 times before you cut once, right? And I think it sounds like you're the same kind of guy who enjoys that pressure of the CEO, enjoys thinking about all the things you missed, enjoys going into a bunch of interns and saying, guys, what can we improve here? I've only been around for 2 minutes. I'm going to be your boss in 4 hours, but you have tremendous value. Like, what is it, right? And so I immediately identified with you, Red, and I appreciate this early friendship. I appreciate you coming on my episode 5 podcast. I just asked you on Sunday. You're like, yeah, send me the outline. Let's see what it is. And we did our tech rehearsal on Tuesday, and you got along with Steven and Skylar. And so always, my friends, take a left turn, stop into a bar you've never been to, have a conversation with a stranger, go with your gut, because you may discover more of yourself as you experience another individual who is seeking to follow their process to give outcomes to their viewers and customers in a way that resonates, and you build connections, relationships, and friendships. And that, to me, is the value of our friendship, our connection, this podcast. And I want to encourage all my viewers to make sure that you commission with David Banegas at davidbanegasart.com. Have him do a painting. I'm probably going to thank Red, get a picture of him and his wife, maybe the cat and a dog or something. And I'm going to have that painting made, Red, and we're going to send it to you in LA. You just have to tell me how big the canvas needs to be, right? Like, you can do a big one, you can do a little one, but I appreciate you being on the podcast. Do you have anything you want to say as we close out here?
You know what? What's always odd about this is I don't have the opportunity to interact with your listeners or viewers. So if anybody wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn or through the website, I promise you, if it's a live communication from a human being, I will answer it. And I love to hear from people. So if someone who's curious or has a question about something, there's no self-importance thing happening here. I genuinely love people. So feel free to
listen. I started work February 19th, 1990. I've not worked a day in my life. Not one day have I worked, right? I'm just breathing. I'm just showing up. I'm in shorts and flip-flops in Houston. I'm just breathing. And next week, folks, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to be in Auburn, Washington at Impact Bioenergy. So I'm going to do my first episode 6 remotely. I know my producer's a little scared. I got to make sure to do the technical check and everything else. But I'm going to be at Impact Bioenergy interviewing some guys that are doing some really, really innovative stuff about greenhouses and anaerobic digesters and taking things off the grid. Hey, Red, I purposely didn't get into it, but that other thing,
I don't, but I'm going to pretend I do. Yes.
The sanitation ideas. We'll talk about that later,
Okay.
All right, good. And thank you, Red. And great to have you on. And this will be on Facebook now forever. I know you just reactivated your Facebook a little bit because you're not on it. But we'll get you the link. You can put it up on LinkedIn or whatever. And I look forward to visiting Southern California and going out and breaking bread and having a drink with you.
I'll definitely host you, but thanks for having me. It was really, really fun.
Thank you, Red. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.